Hi guys, good evening. So today I'm going to start a new topic that is triggers in Salesforce. That is very important topic for your development. Okay. It's very much useful. So first of all, you will see like why we are going to use trigger in Salesforce. So triggers are used for the automation. Like in with admin also, we do some automations. We are doing the automations from workflow and process builder. Automation means like when we want to perform some task that has happened automatically. Same thing we are going with the in the development triggers. What happened like something that we cannot do or not allowed, not as a best practice in admin, then the same thing we can do from the triggers. So I'm going to tell you what are triggers, what is the common syntax of the trigger in this session, and we will go with a couple of examples. Okay, so this is a whole series of trigger in which I am going to cover all the real-time use cases of a trigger that will be useful for interviews also. So first of all, we will go with the definition. What is trigger? Trigger are nothing, but they are used to execute the business logic automatically whenever a DML operation is performed. That means whenever we try to insert a new record, whenever if we try to update the new record, whenever if we try to delete the new record. So at that particular point of time, if we want to execute our business logic automatically, then in that particular case, we are going to use a trigger. For example, whenever a new record is inserted, then I want my rating field should gets updated to hot. So what happened here? Whenever a new account record is inserted, I want my rating field should gets updated to hot. So automatically I want whenever a new record gets inserted here. So in that particular case, we are going to use with the before trigger. So we are going to use trigger in that case. So we are having two types of trigger. One is before trigger, one is after trigger. The people will have a common confusion when we have to use before trigger, when we have to use after trigger. So we will see. Coming to the next slide here. So before trigger is nothing. If we want to execute on the same object, then we are going to use a before trigger. For example, whenever I say the first example, whenever a new account record is inserted, I want my rating field should get updated to hot. Now in this scenario, what I want is whenever a new record is inserted, I want my rating field should gets updated to hot value here. So whenever a new record gets inserted, I want a rating field. So the triggering point, if you see here, that is also on the same record, and next point is also on the same record. So here we are going to use before trigger. When we are going to use after trigger, that is on the related object. For example, if I say whenever a new account record is inserted, then in that particular case, we want a on related contact record will also get inserted. Then in that particular case, we are going to use the after trigger. That means that whenever the two objects are getting involved, then we are going to use that particular thing. In the first scenario, I say whenever the account record is inserted, I want my rating field should get updated to hot. Then in that particular case, same thing, same object we are using. But in the next object, we are using whenever a new account record is inserted, the related contact record will also get inserted. That means here we are having the relationship here. So in that particular case, we are going to use the after trigger. What does it trigger? Syntax here. Trigger name on as object. It is object, okay, on as object, and then we are going to use before insert, after insert, whatever it is, and then we are going to use here code. Okay, so that is a very simple syntax. Trigger name on as object. As object means any account object or any contact object or any lead object, whatever object is there, we have to use that particular object here. Now, the next thing, trigger context variable. This is a very important thing. What is a use of trigger context variable? So trigger context variable is nothing that is going to tell us the execution of a trigger. When our trigger is going to execute, who will tell us? This trigger context variable will tell us the execution of the trigger. We have couple of trigger context variable. One is insert, is update, is delete, is before, or is after. We have other also like trigger.new, trigger.old. So what is trigger.is insert? If I say my trigger was executed due to one insert operation, Like the first scenario, whenever I try to insert a new account record, I want my rating field should get updated to hot. Then in that particular scenario, we are going to use this trigger.isInsert. If I say whenever my account rating is hot, I want to update the account description to hot rating account. Then in that particular case, we have to use isUpdate because we are going to use isUpdate here. Is before means first context, like whenever a trigger is executed on the same object, means we are going to use is before. Is after, that means on the related object. If my trigger was executing due to what after operation. So this particular thing is going to return true. We're going to see with the example all these things. You don't have to worry. I'm going to tell each and everything in detail here. So what we are going to represent here, whenever if we insert a new account record, I want my industry field should get updated to banking. Whenever I insert a new account record, my industry field get updated to banking here. Okay, so whenever if we try to insert a new account record, what I want is I want my industry field should get updated to banking. So before you proceed on the program, I want to tell you a couple of more things here. Whenever if we are writing a trigger, always remember that is a best practice. Whenever if you are writing a trigger, always write a trigger on one trigger on one object. That means if we are on the account object, then we cannot write multiple triggers on the same object. If you are writing multiple triggers on the same object, then the Salesforce compiler will get confused which trigger to execute first. So as a best practice, Salesforce say write only one trigger on one object. Okay. So as you proceed, we are going to see number of best practice that we are having here. Okay. So let me come to the developer console here. File, open. Okay, just a minute. Maybe let me relog in this. Let me open the developer console. File, open. So this trigger was already there, so I will delete this trigger first of all. Now what I will do, I will write one trigger. I will close all these file, new, apex trigger. That will be in account trigger. On which object? On account object. Okay. So account trigger on account object, that is before insert. Why before insert? Because my scenario is whenever if I tries to insert a new account record, I want my industry field should be updated to banking. So whenever if I try to insert a new account record, so my industry field should be updated to banking. So if you write a trigger, this particular code will get automatically trigger name on as object before insert. Now if trigger dot is before and trigger dot is insert. What are those? Here, what we are doing, we are checking the trigger context variable that this particular trigger is going to execute in the before context, and this particular trigger is going to execute due to an insert context. Means whenever if we try to insert a new account record, this will returns true. Is before will returns true, and is insert will also returns true here. And what here you will write for loop account ACC trigger dot new. Account ACC trigger.new. What does that means? Trigger.new means here we are creating a new list for the account record. What we are doing? We are doing a new list for the account record. Now here we will check. We'll do if ACC dot industry equals to banking. That's it. Always remember one more thing. In the before trigger, we don't write any DML queries. No DML. on before trigger. So we are not going to write any DML queries on the before trigger. Okay, so trigger account trigger on account before insert if it is before or if it is insert for account ACC trigger dot new ACC dot industry is equal to banking. So we are not going to write any DML queries on the before trigger. We are going to write before trigger directly here. Okay, now if you try to insert a new account record, let's check it out now, like our code is working or not. So how you will check it out? You will just go here, trigger, account, new account dot name. What you will write here? Test 1 2 4 5 here. Okay. Now just save it. Okay, it will give me validation rule error because I have having some validation rule account number. Save it. So if you see, if I tries to insert a new account record, what will happen? My industry field automatically gets updated to banking. I didn't enter any value in the industry field. But since I have written this trigger, like whenever if I tries to insert a new account record, my industry field should gets updated to banking. So that's our code is working because whenever if it tries to insert a new account record, this is an automation. This account it goes here before insert. First of all, it will check if trigger dot is before and trigger dot is insert. Then it will come here for account ACC trigger dot new means it will creating a new list for the account record and it just make ACC dot industry is equal to banking. You don't require any DML queries on the before trigger and it is working here. So that's how it will work here. Okay. Now we'll go with the next scenario if this is clear. Okay. Next scenario I told you here is we will go with before update here. Now if I say you whenever I am on the account record and if his rating is hot, whenever the value of this rating field is hot, whenever if this rating field is hot, what I want is my description field. There is an on the account object, there is a description field. So whenever this rating is hot, then I want my description field should get updated to hot rating account. Okay. So this trigger we are going to write on before update. And we are going to write here if trigger dot is before and trigger dot is update. Then for account ACC trigger dot new, we will check here if ACC dot rating equals to hot. Then ACC dot description is equal to hot rating account. That's it. So we are checking on the before update. If for account ACC trigger dot new, if ACC dot rating equals to hot. If it is hot, then what I want is I want my description field is going to be updated on the hot rating account. Now, why we before update? Because the scenario is saying that thing only. Like whenever if it tries to update a new account record, then the description field should get updated to hot rating account. The scenario is whenever we are on the existing account record and if the account rating is hot, rating is a pick list field that is having three values. One is hot, one is warm, one is cold. So if rating equals to hot, then what I want is description field I want as hot rating account. So we are going with that only is before and is update. For account ACC, trigger dot new. Rating is hot, then my description is hot rating account. That's it. If you go here, if you refresh this piece of code here, let me reload this page. Now, if you scroll down, rating is hot. Let me save. Then what is the code here? If rating is hot, then description field is hot rating account. That's it. If my rating is hot, then my description field should get submitted to hot rating account. Okay. So what is the scenarios that you have to do as a practice? So you can do trigger on the lead object when the lead source is partner referral. Update the description to partner referral description. Okay. So very simple. Like this time you need to write this trigger on the lead object. And on the lead object, we are having one value that is lead source. So whenever that lead source is partner referral, you need to update the description to partner referral description. Okay. Okay. See you in the next session. We will see couple of more scenarios for this before trigger. I will tell you the best practice also. Okay. So see you soon there.